following podcast is recorded and produced by the Podcast Precinct in affiliation with the network at bicbp-radio.com. The Podcast Precinct. Consistency, creativity, culture.
Boom, boom. Oh, do you hear something? Boom, boom. Thank you very much. Boom, boom. Here I come to save the day. Boom, boom. That's right. This is a very special episode of Retro Pop / Retroactive Sports Podcast. We're doubling you over. I didn't think that sentence through before saying it.
No.
Didn't think it through. I am Johnny Townsend, and I am pleased as a punch, as they say down here in the South, to introduce not just one co-host for this. I'm going to double it down. I'm going to take one awesome person and add even another awesome person. And if my math serves me correctly, and it rarely does, that's two awesome persons. And we've done it. We've done it here today. I have, of course, my co-host from Retroactive Sports. That's a certain man with such dignity and character and he's really good with deck of cards. I don't actually know if he is or not, but it's Andrew Lenz.
I actually have to have my wife shuffle for me.
I do too. I mean, I don't have a wife, but I can't shuffle cards. Never could. I have to do it individually, and I look like an idiot.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm very good at. But I like the deck of cards thing because I did enjoy Gambit and X-Men, so that was kind of nice and refreshing there.
There you go. And speaking of X-Men, I need someone with a great set of eyes for their optic blasting. The Cyclops to my Wolverine. I wanted to be Cyclops so bad, but I'm going to let him be Cyclops.
Thank you.
Because he is Matt Johnson.
Hello.
Matt,
And
can you shuffle cards?
Yeah. I can. Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Son of a.
I know. And I just wanted the listeners to know who was, introduced first and who was introduced last, as in last, best for last. I just wanted to say that. I wanted to point that out for everybody, that best for last.
I'm just happy to have two people fighting over me. I feel great.
You should have introduced us both at the same time.
All right, here we go.
Andrew Matt Lenz Johnson.
Mandrew.
It sounds like a mother like yelling at it. Just some random
Lenson.
Mandrew Lenson. Great to have y'all.
All right, there we go. Equality. We are equal now.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what this is? I'm going to play equality. Do I get a participation trophy at the end of this episode?
No. I'll send you a little sticker with a smiley face sticker.
I will take
after this.
I will take it
on a deck of cards and say, please learn to shuffle these so you can shuffle for me because I can't shuffle either.
I actually bought an electric shuffler. That's how bad I am.
Whoa. Wow. I could use that for my playlist. I can't even shuffle a playlist on YouTube. But here we are. We're doing something special this week. And let me let the peeps in behind the scenes of what happened. Weeks ago on Retro Pop, Matt and I were trying to decide what we're going to cover next. And I said, you know what? I'd really like to talk about Andy Kaufman. And Matt was like, all right, let's do it. So Andy Kaufman became the topic. And then Andrew did not know this.
No.
And he came to me like within a week and he said, hey, I really want to do about some Andrew Kaufman. I really want to do Andy Kaufman and Jerry the King Lawler. And I was like, that's a good idea. Did you know that we were already going to do that on Retropop? And then it hit me. And then after I reported that abuse, I got an idea.
And you still couldn't after that either, too.
It was a great idea. We're literally recording like this one piece of audio is going to be placed on 2 different feeds.
I'm actually going to put it on every one of my podcasts. I don't care what the podcast is, so I hope you're enjoying this on Retro Blist.
That's not a bad, you know what? That's not a bad idea. I wish I would have thought of that from the beginning. Just every time I did a show, just put it on every single, like, today on the Push Start podcast, we're talking NFL action here as the Colts. I should have did it. I fudged up.
Just throw everything out there. Make sure everybody knows that you have multiple podcasts and where they can find you at.
Yeah, do that first, but then the secret is all the podcasts play the same audio every week.
That's right. Section 6 WrestleCast. Today we are talking about Chef Boyardee.
That's right.
You know, I heard that's the lost episode of Retro Pop.
Yes, it is. It's gone.
It never happened.
That was the most disappointing, one of the most disappointing moments of my podcast career, if you can call it that. Yeah. A lot of hard work and editing. Just gone.
And we don't know where it is.
You lost it after you edited?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
I think what happened was, I know we're getting sidetracked here, but I think what happened was our wonderful Squarespace website did what it loves. It does just the best and doesn't work when you need it to. So I think I was having trouble uploading, and I forgot that I had trouble uploading, and then I have to clear out my computer every like couple days because it has like 30 hours of space, and it disappeared.
Yeah, I understand that. That's from your ears to Bill Gates' ears, as that saying goes. So we're talking Andy Kaufman today for both these shows because it fits, and unbeknownst to all of us, the WWE just announced, as of this recording very recently, Andy Kaufman is getting put into the WWE Hall of Fame. Really weird that he hasn't already been in there, but here we are.
It is very weird.
I'm glad that they waited, though. I will say that I am. They have an issue right now where they're running out of people to put into the Hall of Fame. And they're just literally, I mean, Kaufman definitely deserves it for what he did for pro wrestling in the 80s. No doubt about it, and should have been in a long time ago. But also, with how like picky that they are with who they let in and whatnot, I'm glad that they're waiting. You know, they waited this long and didn't try to force it.
It does. See, I think he should have been in sooner, but I do agree with you that it's cool that he's going in now because it's a bigger ceremony. If he would have went in the earlier years, I think he would have got lost in the shuffle of a lot of people that did go in and they didn't televise the ceremony.
Yeah, a lot of shuffle talk today.
Now you get to see him, and then people that don't automatically know the story can find out more about the story and be intrigued. And honestly, out of everybody on there, he's probably had the most to do with pro wrestling and what it is even today by today's standard.
Yeah, I agree.
And we're actually coming really soon. I think it's next year is actually the anniversary of his passing. So it's coming up quick. That is. So it's pretty wild, and another person taken way too soon, way too young. He passed away, but while he was here, man, he made an impression, that's for sure. And we're going to talk about that. But guys, fellas, gents, peeps, let's get into it. Let's talk about our personal history with Andy Kaufman. discovered him through comedy first, oddly enough, despite the fact that I grew up a wrestling nerd. But it was my comedy nerdness that found Andy Kaufman. And it was trying to remember what it was, but I just saw like a random clip of this guy on stage just standing there stone faced as the Mighty Mouse theme was playing. And then when that chorus comes, here I come to save the day, it gets really animated and he lip syncs it. And I was like 7 or 8 when I saw this, and my mind was like, this guy's a genius. And then that's when I kind of started really discovering him. And when I got a little older and I got really into comedy, he was just so fascinating to me. Just his presence and how he obviously did not care if people got it or not. And he would take those chances anyway. Like that was more, you can tell that's more of the thrill for him, was the art of it. The art of how people react to things was way more important to him than a humongous laugh for a punchline. And I would dare say, I don't know how he would feel about this if he was still around today, but I would dare say he's one of the pioneers of like alternative comedy. For sure. If you go to Wikipedia, it actually lists, I don't know why they're starting to do this, but they'll list all the different quote unquote genres of comedy he was in. And one of them was like anti-comedy.
Yeah, I seen that like a few hours ago. I'm like, what the hell is that?
I guess isn't that just like drama? Isn't that what that is?
Anti-comedy. Is that like antipasta? Like
yeah. Is anti-drama, is that comedy? There's
well,
I never heard that term before.
He always wanted to make people feel uncomfortable too. Like you said, with the reaction, it's not so much of, are you going to laugh at me? But even if I can just get any reaction.
Yes. It was way more, I think he was more fascinated with like human behavior than anything else. And there was like an interview with him too, where he actually said that he doesn't even consider himself a comic. He's a performer. He's not really a comic. And I think that's probably fair and true. And that's not knocking him or comedians down at all. That's just what he did, was his own kind of brand, especially when he was doing it. Wasn't seen everywhere.
I'd still say his style of comedy was pretty unique. It is unique compared to today. I don't really see, like, comparatively, I really don't see too many acts that are like weird and goofy like that. You know what I mean? Especially like doing shows and
I mean, he was playing characters on stage.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That was his get up. I mean, maybe Jeff Dunham, but that's a whole nother style of comedy.
Yeah.
A completely whole different style. Kaufman was unique. I mean, listen, that's how you stand out, right? Is doing your own version of something that people, hundreds of people are already famous for doing. The comedy scene was massive in the 70s and 80s while he was growing up to be a part of it. So let me do something that's weird and awkward and stands out. And here we are all these years later, and he stands out for that reason. So I agree with your perspective on that.
Yeah, that also came from Jerry Lawler was talking about it too. It's honestly is him watching the Nature Boy Buddy Rogers and picking up at a very young age, where I didn't learn this until later on, that these bad guys or heels in wrestling make you intentionally hate them, make you get that reaction or anything like that. And he was like, this guy's really making me want to hate him, but I'm just going to like him even more because of it.
Yeah, it's a skill. It's a real skill. Not everybody can do it. And it's pretty incredible. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, and I'll get into it here in a second, that really formed him, including his love of pro wrestling, and especially the bad guys. And, Elvis, like there's all kinds of things he was fans of that really, if you look back on it, really kind of formed who he became and his style of entertaining. And that makes sense, right? We're all kind of I think I consider all three of us as creative people, and I think we're all kind of, we're we're sons of the things that we grew up really digging and enjoying, right? Like those things inform a part of who we are.
Well,
Yeah.
that's how I first realized Andy Kaufman is kind of like in the Sons thing in a way. My mom liked Taxi, so when Taxi
Yeah.
did hit syndication, that's how I found out about Andy Kaufman. First time seeing Andy Kaufman was him as Laka.
Yeah.
And then later on, Comedy Central did things where it did show the wrestling and then old SNLs and stuff like that, where you're like, kind of like you, Johnny, where you really appreciate what he's doing, even though it's not the norm. It's something different. It's something innovative. And plus, too, his name is Andy. I'm Andrew. So it was cool to see a celebrity with somewhat of my name because there's not too many. Like you have a cool robot and a cool country singer, Johnny, and Matt's got a bunch of
A bunch of Matts out there.
All right.
There's
So
only one
you,
Matt Johnson, but yeah.
yeah. But when
Is there? No, there's a lot of Matt Johnsons. They're not famous, but a lot of Matt Johnsons.
Yeah.
But when you see somebody with
not the one that I know though. There's only one Matt Johnson I know, and he's a goat. He's the goat Matt Johnson for me.
Cheers.
All right, guys, let's get into the history of Andy Kaufman.
You know what, Mr. Lawler? I've heard all these things you've been saying about me on television. You want to wrestle me? You want to wrestle me, Memphis style? All right, fine. I'm not afraid of you, Mr. Lawler, because let me tell you something. True, I only wrestle women, but I've wrestled women that are a lot bigger and stronger than you. Matter of fact, they're probably smarter than you because you don't have any brains. You're from Memphis, Tennessee. All you do is plow the fields and farm and the farm and is that how you talk to Memphis, Tennessee, Mr. Lawler? See, Mr. Lawler?
A certain January 17th, that's another reason I relate to Mr. Kaufman here. We're January babies. Was in 1949, a certain Andy Kaufman was born. His mom was a homemaker and a former fashion model, and his dad was a jewelry salesman. But it was pretty evident from an early age, like we kind of alluded to already, that he really had that performing bug, right? He really liked doing it. So even like as young as 9 years old, he would actually try to perform at birthday parties and stuff like that. And he was, and we've already mentioned it, he loved pro wrestling. He loved Elvis. He there's just any sort of getting on stage and putting on a show that just really, really appealed to him. And when he grew up, he actually would go to a college that doesn't exist anymore called Graham Junior College. And this is where he really started to lay some seeds of, I'm really going to make this my thing. Because he actually had a campus TV show in 1969, nice, called Uncle Andy's Funhouse. And I mean, there's all kinds of tales about Andy. And there's another thing too that makes Andy very much like pro wrestling. Some of it, like you don't know if it's kayfabe or not, right?
Yeah,
that's part of Andy Kaufman's legacy, and I think he would want it that way.
I think so. Yeah, that's another really great point. I remember one of the comedy specials I watched. I was like, "Is this dude for real?" He was like asking. It was like not Howard Stern. Dave Letterman, I think, and he was asking the crowd for dollar bills because something happened or he needed some kind of procedure. I'm like, this is making me uncomfortable. Is this real or not? Like, what is going? And they escorted him off stage. I'm like, this is good stuff.
Yes,
this is very good stuff.
Yes, he would do things like that. One of the stories that was told was that he loved Elvis so much and he really wanted to meet him that he actually hitchhiked all the way to Las Vegas and showed up unannounced to meet Elvis. One of those things. But it wasn't even too long after junior college that he would actually start going out to like coffee houses and small comedy clubs and stuff and just trying stuff. He would just go out there just trying stuff. And it was very different. It wasn't like he'd go out there and have like a quote unquote a set. You know, most comedians they work on their jokes and they have like a whole list. They even write their jokes down, most of them, and really work on them. It's a whole craft to it, right? And but Andy was different. He would try characters and he wouldn't let the audience in on it. There's all kinds of things. And he started growing bigger and bigger and more well known for this. He would create characters. There's the Foreign Man was one of the big ones that got him noticed. But he did all kinds of different ones.
I think,
yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
oh, probably his biggest one is Tony Clifton.
Yes. To the point where he would do things where like he and Tony Clifton would be at one place at the same time sometimes because he would get somebody to pretend to be Tony Clifton. I mean, that's pro wrestling, man. That was like, I remember watching a special on him, and that was like the biggest thing was everybody be like, well, Andy Kaufman's Tony Clifton. And he's like, no, I'm not Tony Clifton. And then all of a sudden, like you said, him and Tony Clifton would show up in the same place. And Tony Clifton was so rude and very crash like lounge singer. And, you know, wear like the very oddly flamboyant clothes and everything else. But it was just crazy though when you just saw Tony Clifton and the way that he talked. And he was, as Matt was saying, you're like, is this even a real person? Because this is really making me feel uncomfortable the way that Tony Clifton's acting. Yeah. And that wasn't the only characters he would try. There's all kinds of them. There was he would do that Mighty Mouse thing I talked about before. One time I don't remember what the novel was. It's one of the classic novels. He took was it The Great Gatsby or something like that? Yeah. It's a long book, but he took it out on stage and just started reading from it. That's all he was doing. He was just standing there reading from it, and it was a packed house. And the people in the crowd didn't understand what he was doing. But he kept doing it so long that it became funny. And then when I started laughing, he would ask them to please quiet down. I'm reading this.
What a master psychology.
Exactly. I mean, who does that? You know, it's just such a weird thing. And then he got noticed. And even in early SNL, they noticed him. And they started kind of featuring some of his stuff on there. And then then he actually got the part, like we said, on Taxi during this time. So his star's really rising. He's becoming a well-known TV star. Taxi was a huge show. I mean, I don't think a lot of people know today how big it was, but at one time it was one of the biggest shows on TV.
That was a star-studded cast.
Yeah, right. Didn't it launch like Danny DeVito's career, or was a big part of that?
Danny DeVito, Christopher Lloyd, Tony Danza, Judge Hearst. The one girl is escaping my head. Marlo Henner. Like, those were all like big time people on tech.
I mean, even today, those names are
star-studded.
Yeah, even today, that's a wow cast right there.
Yeah.
That's just incredible. And and honestly, I don't know if you go back and watch Taxi, but it's still pretty funny. I watched it not too long ago. It's got some pretty great jokes in it.
It's got Tony Danza.
Yeah. Oh, you can't go wrong, man. Who's the boss? It's not Tony Danza. Just so you know, it's not him. It's Angela is the boss. I found that out. I remembered that. But yeah, so he was on Taxi, which was one of the biggest shows on TV. And he was such a character in a show that was full of characters, but he still even stood out there. And that got him to become even bigger. And that's when he started like going on like Letterman and stuff. He was actually on Letterman a lot. Way more than the one we're really going to talk about. But he would do all kinds of things on Letterman that were just weird, odd ideas he would have. And it's just really strange. Like he was not afraid to fail. That's one of the biggest things I think that sets some people apart. Failure really does kind of keep us from doing certain things. One time I met a comedian, and I won't say his name, though. He's awesome. He's an incredibly funny guy, and he was awesome to me. But he was encouraging me because he thought I was funny to get on stage and try doing stand-up. And I froze, which is really weird because I've done all kinds of things in front of people all the time, but it's like when that was my sole goal was to get up there to make people laugh, like it was just different. It's different.
Yeah.
So it's just like that whole thing of I've never been afraid to fail before, but that was different. So I just gained so much even more respect for that whole craft there for that one time where I fell on my face miserably. And it wasn't a small house too, like there was barely hardly anybody there. It was at a restaurant, even if I'm thinking correctly. So it was just so wild But that's just one of the things. I mean, he would get up there knowing that there's a chance people are going to be mad. There's a chance that people are just going to be perplexed. And like you guys said, most of the people are going to come out of that thinking, what is this? Is this real? But let's get into the big part of his life that both set him apart, but also the part that you don't know is it actually kind of hurt him too, is when he got involved with pro wrestling. So as he was doing some shows and stuff, he started doing this thing where he would have random ladies from the crowd. This is even before he was actually at real wrestling places. And he would wrestle them and see if any of them could beat him. And there's a really great interview you can find with him. Like somebody asked him, why are you wrestling women? And he goes, because if I wrestled guys, they'd beat me.
Because he was the self-proclaimed intergender world champion.
Yes.
Yes. I absolutely loved people who, there's actually people on the independent level who buy their own championship belts and then bring them places to defend them. And usually everybody laughs at those people in a not so good way. However, Andy Kaufman doing it, pure genius. He did it. I mean, he did it to get heat from the crowd. But yeah, I've known a lot of people who've bought their own belts or created their own championship titles just to defend them places.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. And real quick too, I wanted to talk about this real quick too before we get really hardcore into the wrestling aspect of this. There's a very famous episode, and I thought this was really interesting, of Saturday Night Live that he was on in the 80s. And there's a skit that they wanted him to do where he's Elvis. And in the middle of this skit, he actually just breaks character and apologizes to the audience and says he's not going to do it. And apparently the reason is he really was a huge Elvis fan. And this skit called for him as Elvis. He was playing Elvis, and like he was going to get like some ladies, and it was going to be like really risque Elvis thing. And he was like, I can't do this to Elvis. And Elvis is gone in 82, right, Andrew? I think he is, right? He died in the 70s, right?
Yeah.
I think he was got 80. I think 80 he went 80, 81, something like that. He didn't make it very far into the 80s.
Yeah. So apparently a book had just come out about Elvis, and it was kind of harsh toward him on some things. So of course SNL was playing off of that, and it even started this whole feud between Andy and SNL to the point where he challenged some guy from there to a thing where he's like, I'm going to challenge you on about how good of a person Elvis was. He just wasn't going to take it, man.
Well, didn't he get voted off? Like there's a bunch of people who voted him off or something like that. I read. I don't know if I'm cutting into something, but I read that. I'm like, what? That's him
after.
off?
Yes, we'll get into that. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes, that's very true. That did happen. But this is when he starts getting the wrestling. He actually goes to a certain Vince McMahon, who's another certain Vince McMahon's father. Yeah. He was one of the first ones he went to. And he said, hey, I want to get into wrestling. I'm doing this. And McMahon was like, I don't think so. I think it'll make us look bad.
That's just so funny.
Yes. Just because he was at Madison Square Garden, of all places.
Yeah. Senior was super protect. Him and his son had two completely different visions of what wrestling was. And older McMahon was, NWA, born and kind of raised in the NWA system, and is like, nope, we're not doing that. We're not breaking tradition. And Vince would have been all over it.
Yeah, this is right before. This is still in territory days too. Let's also say that wrestling is still in its territories, as in it's wrestling's way more of a local thing. Like you had different sections of the United States that you watched. There wasn't a national product then. There wasn't like one product that everybody from anywhere in the United States could really watch.
Correct. Yeah.
And I think Bob Backlund is the champion right now, and it's not the crazy Bob Backlund we know. It's like the Golden Boy, All-American wrestler, like that Bob Backlund. We're not going to do anything crazy. We're not going to do anything nutsy. We're going to have Bruno San Martino after he held the belt for 1,000 years, and then we're going to transition to Bob Backlund.
Yeah.
And that's going to be our guy. So I mean, I can see it, but it's just so weird that how different things are. And if younger Vince would have just been in charge, how the way wrestling history would have changed from that point on.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. And he's luckily though, this is also at this time where a certain Jerry Lawler is huge, and Memphis, the Memphis wrestling scene, is one of the bigger ones. It's actually a pretty famous one. It makes pretty good money, I would dare say. And Lawler and Kaufman talk to each other, and Jerry's like, I think we could do something here. We'll at least see what happens. And they kind of strike a little deal. And Andy's going down to Memphis, Tennessee, as he likes to say.
Yeah, because
oh man, he's so good at that.
That was such a funny thing too, with like how he got to there. Because even he called Jerry Jarrett, who was the promoter and booker, and Jerry Jarrett was like, "Yeah, whatever. Here's Jerry Lawler's number. You could call him and see what you could do." So nobody was really 100% sold on a celebrity in wrestling.
Well, you also got to remember too, like, this is also during a time where fans were not necessarily smartened up, as they say.
Right.
It was all still real to me, damn it, type of stuff.
Yeah, super protective over characters, business. Like people, like wrestlers would not have wanted to go in the ring with Andy Kaufman, and have to put him over. That's some inside wrestling speak there, because they're like, oh, it's going to diminish the sport. That's why the whole angle with him, eventually moving on to and getting approved to wrestling women. I think he had a specific partner that was like a plant that did this all the time, but that's what made it so great and what made it work so well.
Yeah, he did have he would have plants every once. He would have plants, but they would have some legit women too that they would pick. Like it was both. But so they tried on a Memphis show, and Jerry sees this and he realizes, man, this is getting a big reaction here. Having these women come up out of the crowd, and they're fighting him and they're trying to pin him, and the crowd's going nuts for this, because not only do you want to see this this rich guy lose, this famous rich guy, but Andy Kaufman is so stinking good at getting you to hate him. He knows exactly what buttons to push, and he is a great talker. He is a fantastic talker. There's a lot, I think a lot of the younger wrestlers can learn just from Andy Kaufman promos.
Oh yeah, just the like that first event, and the most famous one is Foxy.
Yes, yeah.
Who came out of the crowd, and she almost got him, and they say if she didn't in a wrestling term, blow up or get tired, as we would say, he would have lost that. And that is probably the biggest snowball out of that first one, is that Foxy almost took him down, and both of the Jerrys, Lawler and Jarrett, were like, yeah, we could make some money off of this. And that's how it all just snowballed all the way through, even with his, when he came back, and Jerry Lawler says, well, I'm going to take Foxy and I'm going to train her up, even though we know today what training is different from then. And as Andy's doing it, and the way that he's talking is that if Foxy beats him, I think she's going to get $1,000, and he's going to marry her and everything else. And she's going, I don't want to marry Andy. I want to marry Andy Kaufman. And he's playing it up how great he is and everything else. Like you said, just the way that he was on the microphone, and as that Weasley character, like even his wrestling attire, the
Yes.
like long john pajamas that your mom used to dress you up in before you go outside and play in the snow or something.
It looks homemade.
day.
The whole thing looks homemade. Yeah.
Yes.
I thought,
it looked like
it was
a
very
pure choice.
Rocky 1 to me, or Rocky
Yes,
2.
yes,
Like he was
yes,
jogging,
yeah.
and he just literally just went out there. And listen, there's wrestlers who go on shows and they wear sweatpants and all sorts of stuff. They just wear that regularly. But yes, he did not look like a wrestler. That's what made him so hateable. This is the age of body guys, right? The big jacked guys are really in shape guys. I mean, Ric Flair was massive. All these guys were just huge and jacked, and the fact that he's going out there and he's beating on women, and he's like, yeah, look at me, look how good I am, and flexing. It just it irritates. It's like there's all these like celebrities and stuff that get off and they get clicks and popular by being annoying. Kaufman was that.
Yeah.
That's exactly what Kaufman was.
Yes.
I would dare so it's got a clickbait celebrity before clickbait was even a thing.
Yeah. He was so good that you would pay money to see him get his mouth shut.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you need in a heel. That's or quote unquote bad guy, whatever you want to call them.
Or just what can I hate for him next? Like, I know I do that sometimes where I know I hate something and I'm like, well, I'm going to click on it. So now I got something new to hate on this person. I'm just a miserable man, but yeah, that's what Andy Kaufman was best at. And that's what he did, is the whole entire Memphis thing. You mentioned the promos that he would send in from his thing in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And
let's get to that. So here's what happens. Foxy Bout beats him that first night. So they make a deal where Andy Kaufman's going to come back, but Foxy's going to get trained up from Jerry Lawler, because Lawler kind of came in, and you got to remember at this time, Lawler was like the Hulk Hogan or the John Cena or the Roman Reigns or whoever you want to use, the biggest star in this place. Like, he sold tickets. Just his name was a humongous deal. So he's the one who comes in and makes the save, and he gets really tired. He's the hero. And he's so tired of this Hollywood guy just doing this, and he's there to defend everybody's honor, especially, pro wrestling and Memphis's honor. And that's what he does. So they come back the next time, but guess what? Andy wins. He still wins. And this is what really starts the feud between Andy Kaufman and Jerry Lawler. And Andy Kaufman starts sending in promos as he's in Hollywood, his videotapes. And I encourage you to find them. They're on YouTube. They are incredible. They're really, really good, like Andrew was saying. And one of them, did you see the one where there's a woman there and he wrestles her, and like they play like she got hurt? And he's like, I don't care. I don't care if she's hurt. Like, it's so great.
Just because his partner, Bob Zamunda, played his quote unquote lawyer. And then he's like, Andy, I think you really hurt her. He's like, I don't care. She's a nobody. I'm rich. I'm from Hollywood. I'm a Hollywood star. I don't care about her. What kind of money does she have? She doesn't have any money. Why should we care? And it was just that type of talk and everything else that made you just even hate him, because you mentioned his when he was making fun of the Southern accent and stuff like that, and they're watching it, and Jimmy Hart mentions there was a wrestler named Dream Machine. And he heard the promo, and he looked at Jimmy Hart and goes, he shouldn't say it like that. He shouldn't say it like that. That's not good. And when you're getting other wrestlers to go, what is this guy doing? Like, guys that are professionals to say, no, that's not right. We can't be doing that. But yet Andy Kaufman was like, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to make fun of it, and I'm going to bring up the heat and everything else. But
their feud was so good that people today still ask Jerry Lawler if it was real.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how good it was.
Yeah, because
but he's sending in these promos, really building this up, and they're showing it. Memphis Wrestling TV was huge. Their show on television was really big, so it was gaining steam, and it was starting to kind of hit on a national level too. And so Andy and Jerry have their match. It's a big deal. It sells out. It's huge. And of course, if you can watch this thing, another just psychology that's used in this match. There's as a wrestling match, it's obviously nothing, but that's not why you're watching this. You're watching this for the story that's being told here. And Andy is brilliant in this, and I think Jerry is the perfect foil for it. And Andy's going around the ring. He's kind of refusing. He doesn't want to start the match because he knows he's going to get beat, and he doesn't want to look stupid. And then Jerry's like, "Hey, I'll let you have a headlock on me."
Yeah. Well, he talks about swearing too. That Lawler sweared, and nobody swore back then.
Yeah.
He said, "Are you gonna make an ass of yourself all night, or are you gonna do something?" And that's when the front, I'll let you get the headlock on me.
Yeah, it's like when I cuss on panel discussion. I do that just to get a rise out of Matt because he's just not used to it.
Yeah, it's something. It is something.
We count the F-bombs I use on there. That's how we do it. It's so far it's 2. I don't.
It is right. The F-bomb jar is slowly approaching.
And what's brilliant after this though is Jerry's big move was the pile driver, and he gives Andy not one of those, but 2. And Andy also knows how to sell. And when I say sell in wrestling terms, for those who don't know, that's when you're quote unquote hurt after a move. You got to make sure that it looks like that move really, really hurt. Basically, is kind of the gist of it. And there's an art to that too, by the way. And sadly, and this is just me being an old man, I think it's kind of slowly kind of getting lost.
Yeah.
And stuff today, sadly. But Andy was so good at it. And he's laying there and he's saying, "I can't move, I'm hurt. And he says, get an ambulance. And there's another tale, and I don't know if this is true or not. This is one of those things that went around where Jerry Jarrett was like, "I'm not going to pay for an ambulance. That's expensive." Or Jerry Lawler is one of them.
Yeah, it was Lawler in the ring. The referee was going in between the two of them.
And Eddie was like, "I'll pay for it," because he wanted to sell the story. And so he gets taken away. And what's really funny is who else is at the show actually taking the pictures of this is a certain man.
Oh, my God.
With the last name of Cornette.
Yep. Another
big wrestling name. And so that's there's a really great, I think Vice put it out. It's just him, Jim Cornette talking about this. And it's only like 10 to 15 minutes long. Very fascinating. Highly recommend it. No matter how you feel about Cornette, if you're into wrestling, you can't deny his knowledge of stuff. So make sure you watch it's really, really fascinating. Just his perspective and how he was taking pictures and stuff. So, so Andy gets taken away in an ambulance. And then this is how Andy sells it. Again, this is the era of this stuff is real. Everywhere that Andy went, even when it wasn't wrestling related, if he knew there was a chance he was going to get filmed or seen, he wore a neck brace. He didn't care. He always wore it. And that sold that even more. And that's when we're going to get to the big moment, not only in wrestling and in sports, but television, when the David Letterman show was like, hey, because Kaufman was on there all the time. Letterman really liked Andy, and he was like, I'm going to have Andy on. And they thought that they were going to get these two to become friends and shake on it or something like that. They're going to bury the beef, as they say. But when Andy and Jerry got there, they were talking to each other, and they were like, what are we going to do? We don't want to just do that. That's lame. That's boring. So on live television, unbeknownst to anyone, they get into an argument. Jerry stands up. Keep in mind, Andy is still selling the neck injury, still wearing the neck brace. And this is a kayfabe slap. He slaps the freaking crap out of Andy Kaufman and sends him to the floor, right? And then he sits back down. And then Andy gets up, he walks off, and then he comes back, and he's cussing on live television.
Oh, F-bombs like Johnny on panel discussion.
Yeah.
Yes. He's pulling a me on the panel discussion. Just a cussing left and right. And splashes coffee on Lawler and runs off. And that's when Letterman has the very famous saying, well, I don't think we can say all those words on television. But as I always said, you don't throw coffee. So it's just a lot of really great stuff there. And that makes headlines.
Yeah, because Letterman even mentioned to Lawler on the set of Man in the Moon, the biopic of Andy Kaufman, said that pretty much made their show. That he is at this time, he is stuck behind like Johnny Carson. So who's really staying up that late? But that made the show. Even though Letterman, is huge today and everything else, he still refers to that moment of that simple fight, the slap, the water throw between Kaufman and Lawler as what really helped him become the star he is today.
Yeah, I mean, because you're just like, if you saw this, you're like, what just happened? And again, this is not a time where you can go back and see it. So it becomes word of mouth and whatever's reported in the newspapers and on the news channels. And it really gets, it becomes like it has its own mythology about it, this whole moment. Because there's still today, there's this thing where I saw an interview with Letterman when he was on, I think it was Howard Stern or something like that. And he was asked about this. He goes, well, did you know? And he goes, well, I thought they were going to do something, but I had no idea what it was going to be, basically. And it's just pretty wild. So the thing that people don't realize, even those who kind of know about this feud in wrestling, is this thing lasted a while, these two. I mean, it's lasted for like a year or two after this. It'd go back and forth. And like Jerry, like they went from being, they were enemies, and and he would Kaufman would hire hitmen, quote unquote, to go after Jerry to take him out. They both would have the same. They'd have like for one time they teamed up because sometimes the enemy of your enemy is your friend type of deal. Mm-hmm. So that happened. So they would team up. But also during this, they were noticing that Andy was seeming less and less like Andy, like he seemed more tired and stuff. And this is when everybody kind of found out that he was sick. And what's another wild thing is he actually, before he, for the end of his life, his actual career actually took a hit because of the pro wrestling thing. It's really wild. Now it would just like highlight both. But back then, it really hurt him. This is when the whole vote with voting him off the show kind of thing happened, was this time. It was he was having a harder time getting work. He was actually kind of looked down upon from the quote unquote Hollywood people, I guess, in a way. So he kind of just kept going back to wrestling, but he loved it so much. One of the other big, I don't know if it's true or not, Cornette said it, and I saw it in a couple other things, that all the checks that Andy Kaufman got for this, he never cashed a one. He actually had them framed because he was just so proud of the stuff he had done.
That is true. Jerry Jarrett confirmed it because he said that they were switching over banks. So, you got to reconcile the books and everything else. And he got a phone call and said, hey, there's a whole bunch of like checks that weren't cashed. And it was all of Andy Kaufman's checks. And
wow.
This also with the feud, it was so believable. I know a lot of wrestling fans or know anything about history knows Cowboy Bill Watts from the Mid-South, who's like hardcore. If remember from when he took over WCW for a little bit in the early 90s, where he got rid of the mats on the outside. Nobody was allowed to jump from the top rope. And it was like all these, he called Jerry Jarrett after the pile driver and was like, I just want to thank you for what you did to Andy Kaufman after he was bad mouthing us about our business and everything else. And Jerry Jarrett's like, I just had a smile on my face. And I'm like, well, you're welcome. And I hung up.
Yeah. How do you reply to that?
Yeah, because you're taking this guy who knows the value of kayfabe and everything else and not even thinking like, this is fake. This is not really happening between these two guys. Dutch Mantell, part of the Memphis territory at that time, said that he didn't want to know. He said he didn't want to know anything. If he saw them together, he'd just walk away because he did not want to know what it was because he was such a fan of everything going on and everything else. it's just amazing what he did and everything that I think he did a lot for pro wrestling in a way. And he was the first, probably 100% for, what we know now as sports entertainment. That was Mr. Kaufman.
Say he definitely pioneered, that route. And I think people took notice, right? Because again, we talked about the WWF at the time. They were they weren't really, storylines weren't a big thing. They weren't prominent. It was more so, here's a match card, here's what happens. Every now and then you'll throw a storyline. And this they've seen the money in. And I would bet some money that Vince McMahon Jr. saw this and wanted to make his entire business model envision professional wrestling based on this.
There's actual interviews where Kaufman gets brought up to Vince McMahon, and he's like, "Man, I really didn't understand why my dad passed on that. Like, because he's like, man, I would have jumped on that 1,000,000%." So, I mean, because Andy was a big star too. I mean, I can't stress that enough. Taxi was a huge show. Andy was a well-known celebrity at this time, and Memphis wrestling was also really huge. So that was a great combination here, and they actually really elevated each other to the national spotlight when that didn't happen very often at this time. So, but of course, like I said, Andy was getting sick, and he would sadly pass away. And he was a young man; he was still in his 30s when he died. So it was really sad. But here's the thing too, and I think Andy would like this. He's also one of those, just like Elvis, just like so many other celebrities that have a shroud of mystery about them. A lot of people are like, is this a bit? Is he going to come back? Is this real? And I think he really, I think he would actually get a kick out of that.
He probably would. Yeah, I mean, listen, like, he's like the Undertaker. He was like the Undertaker, and by that I mean that he was so good at protecting his character always that. Yeah, you're right. I mean, there was that shroud of mystery around him. Yeah, there are still people. There are people who are waiting for him to show up at his Hall of Fame induction.
Yes,
they're like, oh wow, watch him show up, and it is the master class. As great as that would be, I highly doubt it, but it would be the most Andy Kaufman thing to occur.
He was such a big Elvis fan that even Jimmy Hart said after every match, because Jimmy Hart was they refer to him as handlers, or somebody that drove around the talent.
Yeah,
that he would have to not drop them off, but they would park in front of the gates at Graceland, and he would meditate. But before he would meditate, he'd write his name on the gate in chalk, and then sit there and meditate in front of Elvis, in front of Graceland. That's how
cool.
That they say he was a kooky dude either way, but yeah, that's how much he loved Elvis and everything else, that he would, and they would sit there for like an hour, and Jimmy Hart's like, it would be raining, and I wanted to say, Andy, that chalk's just gonna wash off, and then he goes, you know what, I don't even care, I'll just go sit in the car and I'll watch him meditate. that's how huge of an Elvis fan he meant to him as well.
That's just pretty wild. But yeah, so Andy Kaufman, not only a pioneer in comedy, but a pioneer in pro wrestling, I would say.
Yep.
What a legend on both accounts. Just someone who wasn't afraid to perform, who got it. I think is the best way to put it. He understood it when it came to pro wrestling. Even he was like, yeah, I'm all about this performance here and the story I can tell with this, and I want people to boo me, kind of thing. And he was really brilliant at it. But that's the story of Andy Kaufman. Next, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to, I guess I'll just call this the Did You Know of Andy Kaufman.
Lawler with a pile driver. Only the second move by Lawler, and bang goes Kaufman. It's going to be a disqualification. Danny Davis, his manager, not believing it. Gary Lawler, 6 minutes and 50 seconds with a pile driver, has been disqualified. The winner by disqualification, Andy Kaufman. 6. He's
All
going to
right,
give it to him again. He
fellas,
figures he's
like we
already
said
lost.
before, this year, as of this recording in 2023, the WWE are going to finally open up the gates of the Hall of Fame to one Andy Kaufman. So, what we're going to do here is you two are going to take turns trying to name a celebrity who's in the WWE Hall of Fame. And whoever can get, and you're going to go back and forth taking turns until one of you can't name one anymore. I will tell you this, there are 12 in total, not counting Andy. And how we're going to decide who goes first is I'm going to give you a question, and whoever gets closest to the answer wins. And I gets to go first, because I think it's an advantage to go first in this game. All right, you guys understand?
Yep.
All right, the question is, how many episodes of Taxi was Andy actually on?
13.
All right, Andrew?
50.
The actual answer is 79.
Damn, I was way the hell off.
That show was on for much longer than I thought too, Matt. So don't feel bad. So don't feel too bad.
I
That
didn't
show
know
was
it was
actually
a
on for quite a long
regular.
time.
I didn't know
Yeah,
it was a regular.
I think there was like 100 and I don't know the whole number. It was over 120, 30 episodes, and he was on about half of them, I think. Something like that.
Okay.
All right. So that means Andrew gets to go first. Andrew, give me a second to find my writing utensil here so I can keep up with this myself.
We're only naming celebrities in the WWE.
Just celebrities. I got the list here of all 12, not counting Andy. And you got to name one of them, and then you're going to go back and forth until one of you can't name one.
I'm going to name somebody that served not at the same time with me, but in the same unit I did. That's Mr. Drew Carey.
There you go. That's one. Drew Carey. All right, Matt.
This is really hard because there's a bunch that I've joked about being in the Hall of Fame, and there's a bunch that actually there's a few that actually are. Like I've joked about Snooki being in the Hall of Fame, but also there's a part of me that's like, is she actually? I'm gonna say Pete Rose.
There you go. There's another one.
Okay.
All right, Andrew.
I know he's a regular on the panel discussion. I'm going to go Arnold Schwarzenegger.
There you go.
Is he really?
He most certainly is.
Why? What did he do in wrestling?
We'll have to ask him on Tuesday, Matt. Maybe he'll know.
I guess we'll
Check
have to.
check out panel discussion. Wherever you get your podcast. All right, Matt, your turn.
Man.
Also, this is a clue for both of you. When I say celebrity, it doesn't just mean television. So just so you know.
Okay. Trying to think of celebrities that actually did something in wrestling aside from Snooki. Mike Tyson. Mike
There you
Tyson.
go. Yep, there
Okay.
you go. Mike Tyson is another one. All right, Andrew, your turn.
Sylvester Stallone.
Andrew, I'm sorry. Sylvester Stallone is not
He's not? I thought he
in the
was.
WWE Hall of Fame. No. All right, Matt, you got a chance to win this if you can get this.
I should have went with my other one.
Oh God. Oh, I can't believe I almost forgot about this. It's it's the best. It's the biggest Hall of Fame induction ever, and the best. Donald Trump was in the WWE Hall of Fame.
Matt, you have won the game. Donald Trump is indeed. And Andrew, who was the other one you had on your mind?
I was going to say Snoop Dogg. So this is
Snoop Dogg is.
I kind of
Snoop
made
Dogg
like
is
a
in
little
there.
list. I have two more. So I
All
don't
right,
know
what are the other two?
on
Yeah,
there.
Snoop Dogg's in there.
All right. So I said Snoop Dogg, Liberace,
No,
and Muhammad Ali.
no. Oddly
Really?
enough, yeah. Which is really wild when you're going to hear this list because Muhammad Ali for sure should have been on here.
Well, I think he only had one match. Oh, then again,
Well, it's
Drew Carey's in the
not only just
Drew
one
Carey's
match,
in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
and Muhammad, he freaking
Yeah, it was him and
Ali.
Inoki, right? It was him and Inoki,
Him
Ali
and
and
Inoki,
Inoki.
and then he did the referee duty at WrestleMania 1.
And he
That's
fought
right.
Pat
Superman.
Patterson.
And he fought Superman.
He fought Superman / Clark Kent. The guy
in a
did it all.
wrestling ring. That is true. That is true.
All right, so here's the full list. All right, Drew Carey, Snoop Dogg, Ozzy Osbourne,
What?
William the Refrigerator Perry.
Okay.
His name is Kid Rock, Pete Rose, Captain Kirk himself, William Shatner, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
What the hell?
One that I thought one of y'all would get because he pities all the fools guys is Mr. T. Donald Trump, of course, you got that one. Mike Tyson, another big one, of course, especially kind of as one of the forefronts of the Attitude Era would be Mike Tyson bringing that in.
Yeah.
And then another one. This is one I thought Andrew would get because he's kind of a one that me and you wouldn't think of. His first name is Bob. His last name is Euchre.
Bob Euchre.
Bob Euchre. Yeah. So that's your 12. It'll be 13 this year. Adding Andy Kaufman to there. But that's wild that some of these guys are in there when the ones that y'all named I would have put above some of these for sure.
You know who, talking about Mr. Cornette, is he still thinks they're shocked that they're not in the Hall of Fame either, and they need to get in there, is one Cyndi Lauper.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would agree.
I was kind of shocked that she is not in, considering the managing she did with, maybe because of the whole Wendy Richter thing, but isn't Wendy Richter in too?
I don't know. Is she? I want to say she is because there's really inside baseball. There's a mobile WWE game I play all the time, and she's on there. And I would assume they wouldn't put it on there if they were having some issues with her. So, it is wild the ones they choose and don't choose. Like, I mean, she is vital to like just WrestleMania history.
Correct.
That's that whole rock and wrestling area.
Yeah.
She helped launch it. Yeah, she helped launch it.
And she was huge at this time too. I mean, her name meant something that they were having her. I mean, I bet you they sold some tickets just because people are like, oh man, Cindy's going to be there.
I know.
So yeah, it's wild that she's not in there.
Girls just want to have fun.
Yeah, man, that's what I've heard. That's what I've heard.
And have you ever seen the Goonies music video? It's loaded with heels. Classy Freddie Blassie, the Iron Sheik, Roddy Piper. And I can't believe she's still not in.
It is wild that she's not. It's a real. It's almost as like that Hall of Fame's a work, but who knows? You know, guys.
It's still real to me, damn it.
Something tells me that there's another Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame that's not WWE directed, and they're very different Hall of Fames. Not taking away from either one of them, because I think it's a big honor to be in either one of those. But especially if you're a pro wrestler, I would say. But you know, it's just really wild that, and I like Drew Carey. I have nothing against Drew Carey. I loved the Drew Carey show growing up. I like Drew Carey a lot, but it's wild that he's on here when Cyndi Lauper's not. It's just really weird.
A little strange, yeah.
Yeah. But there you go. That's the celebrities who are in the Hall of Fame in the WWE. But that is your Andy Kaufman's Did You Know? Let's go to where we think Andy Kaufman stands in pop culture today.
We're going to pause here for station identification and get the hose brought in. Hi there, and welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. As you can tell, Andy Kaufman is here, sort of, and Jerry Lawler is also here, and there's some nights I wish Tom were here, but that's not the case. Is Andy, are you coming in here again, or?
I am sick of this bullshit. You are full of bullshit, my friend. I will sue you for everything you have. I will sue your ass. You're a motherfucking asshole. As far as I'm concerned, you hear me? A fucking asshole.
Well, I think today, guys, it's not unusual for
somebody. I'm sorry.
It's not unusual to be loved by one. Every time I think that, I think of Mars Attacks. But that's me. I love that movie. But it's not strange for a celebrity to be involved with pro wrestling now. It's kind of it just happens all the time sort of thing, and just on different levels though. Like Andy was heavily involved. Heavily, like he was the major storyline, right? And that kind of level, it's been a while since we've seen that, I think, in pro wrestling when it comes to a celebrity who's actually involved as a main part of one of the major angles going on in pro wrestling. I'm trying to think of the last one. Who do you guys think is the last one?
Probably Tyson or Dennis Rodman, maybe.
One of those.
I don't think they liked Rodman. Who was the other one? Or you know what? Logan. I think Logan Paul is really like it.
Yeah, I think he's fair.
Crushing it right now. But I get where you're coming from, Johnny, where the celebrity gets invested like heavily in the craft and starts to appreciate it. Actually, they've been doing that a lot lately with Logan Paul, Bad Bunny, I think a couple other ones. But it is cool to see that people, like the celebrities, that take it seriously. You know, growing up all the time, you hear all that fake stuff, and then you get like Snoop Dogg. I mean, Shaq's been involved in some pretty major stuff, and they're loving it, and they're having the time of their lives, and it's the coolest thing. So, yeah, I would say Kaufman was probably. I would also say that Kaufman was the first celebrity who did it. Didn't look down upon it, and embraced the opportunity that he had. So, yeah,
I would agree. It's just just so everybody knows too, Matt was a pro wrestler at one time.
Yeah,
and he likes to point this out to me all the time as a big brag. He got to work as extra work on WWE before. But the other thing too that a lot of people don't realize is some things you really love, but then when you actually get involved with it and you get to see all the inner workings of it, sometimes it's hard to keep that love of that thing, because some of it will maybe etch away. Maybe I know this just from the art scene, honestly. You'll meet some people that you looked up to, and they may or may not be what you'd hope they'd be, that type of thing. I mean, that happens quite a bit. Thankfully, in the art scene, most of the people have been really cool, but it does happen where somebody, you're like, man, I really like this person. You finally meet them, and it's not what you'd hoped, type of thing. And I know Matt experienced that as well. But
nope, every wrestler I've ever met has been a great human being.
Yeah,
every single one of them. Jake the Snake Roberts, all the extras backstage at all the main people in backstage at WWE.
Yeah, CM Punk was great.
CM Punk definitely didn't tell me to F off because he was eating his dinner. Wrestlers have been great human beings.
You should have just given him a Pepsi. I think he likes those. He's got the tattoo.
Yelled Cobra in his face, smashed his sandwich, and went, Cobra! Threw a Pepsi at him.
But also, not just for wrestling, just in entertainment. Andy was a trailblazer, I feel. Just a different dude who really loved entertaining and took chances. And I do think that he really started this quote unquote brand of alternative comedy type thing, of people playing, doing more and more playing characters on stage, that type of deal. He's the one who really, really took that and ran with it. And I mean, but what was different was he would play different aspects on different shows. Some people today, they play a character, they just kind of stay that character. Like Larry the Cable Guy, just a little inside baseball here. That's not really who he is. That's just.
I still don't believe it, but I'm aware, and
it'll blow you away if you hear him just talking like himself in an interview. I'll just say that. And he's from Oklahoma.
I'm not ready. I'm not ready for all that.
Yeah,
not ready for it.
Just so everybody knows.
Carlos Mencia, no, he didn't.
He's from Honduras.
Somebody, I thought they did like a fake accent too.
He did. That's why Joe Hogan called him out, because.
Oh, well, it wasn't just that. He was stealing jokes too.
Yeah, he was stealing jokes, and he's not even. yeah, I can say it. He's not even from like Mexico. He's not even Mexican, but that was like his whole thing was making fun of like the Mexican culture and everything coming over here. And he's from like Honduras.
Yeah, and I knew his.
But you're like, wait a minute, that would be like me making fun of people from like Pennsylvania, but I'm from New York. That's where I'm going to pretend like I'm from.
Right.
I'm just gonna let y'all know that my accent is real. I wish it wasn't, but this is what it is. Yeah. So just, I'm sorry, I guess.
It's been getting better for me, Johnny. I know I've known you for almost 5 years now, but your accent isn't laid on so thick as it once was.
Oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness.
You almost sound like a normal person.
You just gotten so used to me. That's all it is. Yeah. Because I've never been called a normal person ever in my life. But just a side note about Carlos.
I did say almost. Almost.
Yeah. A little side note about Carlos Mencia, who before I knew all that stuff, I actually thought he was really funny. But I knew his star had fallen when not too terribly long ago, I want to say like 5 years ago or something like that. He was headlining a very small comedy club in Hickory, North Carolina. And that's when I knew that he wasn't doing so well. Yeah. So, also, side note, same with, but I like this guy, Pauly Shore. So,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
But that's what I was sad I missed because I would love to meet Pauly Shore and talk to him about Encino Man because it's one of my favorite movies. But yeah. But Andy Kaufman, I think his legacy, it's really cool to see his legacy kind of coming back around here lately with all these shows and with the WWE talking about him again. So I think it's really cool to see all that personally.
Have you seen the biopic of Man on the Moon?
Yes. I've seen that and the documentary about the making of that.
Yeah, because I think that's the closest thing we have today to Andy Kaufman is a Jim Carrey. Because if you ever notice Jim Carrey now that he's a little bit more established, he just comes out and he says stuff.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes you go, is he being serious? Or is he just being Jim?
Yeah.
In a way. And he plays great to the T.
Oh, he made people mad. Like he was so
he pissed off Jerry Lawler during the making of that. He made him legit mad.
That was the other thing that I forgot to mention about the feud is, did you know that at while making the movie Man on the Moon, Andy's parents were there and they walked up to Jerry Lawler and goes, for years we hated you. We just hated you. And then all of a sudden we realized that it was all just an act. So
yeah, because they were actually friends.
And then Jerry slapped the shit out of both of them. No.
He would have been like, show me your puppies, Mrs. Kaufman.
The puppies.
It's all just an act. I'll pay him.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I remember seeing that documentary too, and Jerry was talking about it, and he was like, yeah, and I was like, I had to take Jim to the side and be like, like me and Andy were friends, right? So yeah. That's another thing for another time. This method acting thing. I think it's get a grip. Get a grip. You don't need to treat people like crap to get in the character. I hate to tell you, but yeah, that's Andy Kaufman. We want to thank you all for staying here, listening to us on this very special episode of Retro Pop Active Sports, and it means a lot to Matt and Andrew and I that we have this support very much. So I don't know how to end this because this is technically two shows at once.
You got to combine it. You asked for this. You got to combine. I don't know how we do the endings for both shows, but you got to combine it somehow.
Matt, what are we talking about next time on Retro Pop?
Yeah.
All right. So the month of April, we are falling in line with the wonderful theme of April Fools. And we're going to do a Comedians Month. And I have decided for our next episode, I'm going to talk about a very controversial, yet very popular stand-up comedian, and we're going to discuss the life of Mr. Dave Chappelle for our next episode of Retro Pop.
The Chappelle Show to this day, one of the funniest shows I've ever seen.
Changed my life.
It blew my mind. Like my comedy mind exploded. It's like, oh, you can do this. This is funny. So, but yeah. So we're talking about the next time on Retro Pop. Andrew, what are we talking about next time on Interactive Sports?
very different. We are talking about the surgery that has saved many careers of baseball pitchers in the Tommy John surgery.
That's right. Tommy John himself. We're going to have Tommy John on our podcast to talk about the surgery named after him. And so stay tuned for those shows. For Andrew, for Matt, I'm Johnny Townsend. And, of course, I thank